Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today we're going to be talking about Devilman Crybaby, but before we get into that, I just wanted to put some final summation on the previous two videos. Whether right or wrong, one of the main things that I think happened and is happening with a lot of movies right now, and just the media in general, is that they are figuring out how the social media platforms work these days, and we're finding that all of them, they promote controversy and things like that. So you're seeing that lots of films, they'll touch on social subjects that are delicate or that are hot topics without really going into them, because they don't want to polarize their audiences. You know, they're not trying to make a serious statement, but if they do these things, they can promote them. I mean, this is kind of what I talked about in the previous video, but if you look at those previous two videos where I criticized Black Panther and I talked about the way that media kind of works today, you'll see that they're, as of recently anyway, some of the most viewed content that most viewed vlogs that I've done in a while. And this is the way that just YouTube and a lot of platforms operate now. If you talk about this controversial stuff, then, you know, these platforms will find other people that they know are into these kind of subjects, and they'll just suck them in. I've had more viewership, more comments, more more activity just in those views, in those videos than I usually get. And personally, I don't really like those videos too much because although they generate more viewership, it's controversial viewership. It's viewership that upsets people. It's viewership that drives people away. After posting those videos, I lost, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 patrons or something like that. I work a little differently. I'm not... a lot of YouTubers are mainly focused on just generating as many views as possible because most of their income comes from ads. But since I do more like artsy types of things, like animations, and if you've been following the Tumblr recently, I've started doing the Adventures of Steve. I don't know how long I'm going to do the Adventures of Steve, but yeah, Steve. So anyway, that stuff, it's all supported by people liking my stuff and wanting to support my stuff, and so being controversial is kind of detrimental to my case. But a lot of times when it comes to just marketing, like if you just want to get as many people talking about a thing as possible, as many people sharing a thing as possible, I believe that controversy is the way to go. And it's unfortunate and a little bit worrying that I feel like I'm starting to see this from a lot of companies now, because if the mainstream, if like actual marketing teams are sitting down and saying like, all right, these controversial behaviors will get us in the spotlight, then that means it's been going on long enough for them to gather statistical data on it and to say like, yeah, you know, this is pretty reliable. Like, this is pretty much surefire way to get things done. It means that these platforms have had this problem for a long time, you know, at least for a couple of years. And if you think about how people, you know, there's like young people on the internet who are maybe just getting involved on the internet, and for them, they'll basically be coming into an internet that was never irreverent or funny. It was always kind of political and disgusting and awful. And you could say the internet has always been like this, but I feel like the character of the internet really has changed a lot over the years. But anyway though, enough crying about media and politics within and all that other sleazy stuff. It will always be a sleazy business. Let's talk about Devilman Crybaby. Interesting stuff. Claudia and I have been looking into a lot of new shows now that we're kind of done binge watching the stuff that we knew that we would really like. Like, we both shared things with each other that we both liked previously. Like, I liked some anime things that I showed to her, and then she liked some, you know, she liked Jane the Virgin. She showed that to me. And so, you know, we're kind of getting to the end of that. Like, we were watching 30 Rock, and I think that got taken down. Bob's Burgers is gone too. But anyway, though, we're kind of out of shows that we already knew about, and so we're starting to get into shows that are, like, generally, we don't know what they are. Like, we just kind of, like, watch the thing, look at the description, and we go, I don't know, want to give that a shot? And we watched a couple. One of the ones that was recommended to me was Devilman Crybaby, and I don't know why it was recommended to me, because Devilman Crybaby is weird. I guess that's probably why they recommended it to me. But a lot of Netflix originals are really weird, and they're not always good, but I mean, I gotta hand one thing to Netflix. Like, if you're looking for novelty, man, have they got that? Like, they're not shy about it either. They're just doing, like, weird stuff, like whatever kind of thing. We recently watched an anime about some lady gambling, and it was like this weird, like, there was tons of sexual overtones to it. It was just bizarre, but we got through it, and at the end we were like, I don't know, it wasn't horrible, it wasn't amazing, it was different, you know, like, I don't know, it's just definitely different, you know, not sad we watched it, but Devilman Crybaby is in that same vein. It's very stylish, and from what I understand, the guy who is in charge of that project, I was told that he's actually the type to get very artsy with his work, and he tends to just do whatever it is that he wants to do. In the case of Devilman Crybaby, it's interesting in that same kind of way. It's almost like Surrealist, and when I first tried to think of a way to describe it, I wanted to say it wasn't coherent, but that's incorrect. Devilman Crybaby is actually coherent. It has its own sort of string of logic. What it isn't is it's not cogent, which is to say it doesn't have a convincing logic to it. Devilman Crybaby is what I might describe as sort of an emotional ride, where more or less they just create like a lot of scenes and things are happening, and it's kind of about the way the characters are feeling than it is about a logically connected story where there's a lot of really sensible reasons for everything to be happening. Which makes it a little bit difficult to summarize exactly what Devilman Crybaby is. One thing I've compared it to is this movie called Naked Lunch, which is also a book written by a man named William S. Burroughs. Naked Lunch was a book written in a fugue of drugs and things like that. This guy, if I know this story correctly, he got completely messed up on drugs, wrote out a whole novel, and then when his friends came to his house and they saw like pages scattered all over, they're like, what is this? And he's like, oh, it's a novel I was writing. And so what they did is they went through each of the pages and tried to figure out what order they went in, and then turned it into a book. And apparently William S. Burroughs, aside from writing the thing, wasn't terribly involved in the process of getting it published. And, when they took it to court later, because they tried to censor the book on decency, over decency issues, the prosecutor just essentially threw the book down and he said, "What is this? Like, explain what this is." And it's kind of like a horrific nightmare of guilt about being homosexual and things like that. There's like a story about a man whose mouth becomes like an anus with teeth in it and things like that. Like there's like themes with bugs, and in the movie there's like a giant centipede that rapes a man to death. It's weird. It's a weird movie, and I watched this when I was in high school, and it was kind of funny. Like this was a friend who really liked to introduce us to really weird films, who brought this to us. And Devilman Crybaby, it's I don't know if I would say it's more or less grotesque. I think that the thing about the movie, the Naked Lunch movie, was that it was all live action. So it was done with people and with a lot of animatronics. And actually what's really fun is if you watch a lot of Mythbusters, you've probably seen at least one of the animatronics that was in Naked Lunch, especially the Mugwump. They're especially proud of that Mugwump. They put that in all kinds of shots. And I recognize that. I'm just like, that's the Mugwump. That thing's head, those things on its head, those are actually penises. Like you can't tell because they don't have them like all doing their thing, but those are actually penises. So yeah. Anyway, though, so it's not live action; it's all cartoon, and I say that it kind of reminds me of Naked Lunch, and because I'm making this comparison, I'm not sure if this is really accurate, but there might be themes of homosexuality in Devilman Crybaby, because the characters all appear to be gay. Or at least like three of them are, and possibly more, but it's not explicitly stated who all has what sexuality. But it seemed to me that everyone who turned into a devil person and still retained their sense of self was actually gay. Like I say, I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure it's the case. And so what it actually is it's about like demons are emerging into the world and they take over people. And as far as I can tell, most of the demons enter the world from this like club in Japan. And I guess they actually started in Argentina or somewhere in South America exactly. But you have this character whose name is Crybaby. I can't remember his actual name now. It's really not important. His name is Crybaby, and apparently he's really bad at running and stuff. He's not very good at stuff. He's not very good at anything. But whenever he hears that other people are sad, or he learns about something that's sad for other people, he cries for them because he's supposed to be very empathetic. And so he never cries for himself. He only cries for other people. This is the gist of this. And so he's hanging out on the docks, and there's this rap gang that shows up, and they're not I don't know how else to describe them, but they're just like this gang of kids, and they just show up and they're like, yo, and they start like rapping, and so then his friend, whose name I also can't remember, I'm just gonna say his name is the Devil because surprise, He's the devil. By the way, spoilers. Anyway, though, so the devil shows up, and he's wearing like a white jacket, and he's got like a Tech 9, like an Uzi, or maybe not. I guess a Tech 9 is like a street gun modified to be fully automatic, but whatever. He's got like a fully automatic machine gun, submachine gun, and he like just shows up and he shoots up the dock, and he's like, "Hey, Crybaby, let's go on an adventure." And Crybaby's like, "Sure, bud." And so they kind of they're like, "Oh yeah, Crybaby's really empathetic, but not towards rap gangs. You know, if you shoot an Uzi, an automatic weapon at their feet, you know, and they all piss themselves, doesn't trigger his empathy. He's totally on board to go to this club." And so the devil is like, "So Crybaby, demons are invading the world, and I'm gonna get like film footage of it, and I want you to help me out." And Crybaby's like, "Okay, what do we do?" And so they go to this party where there's like all these topless girls dancing around, and everyone's having gay sex, and some people are having straight sex. Actually, I think the straight sex is more prominent, but like I say, I kind of am imposing this comparison, so I have no idea. I don't know. Everyone's doing drugs. It's just horrible debauchery. And if any of this sounds sexy to you, I gotta point out right away that if you want to watch Devilman Crybaby for the sex appeal, you're really gonna be disappointed. Everything is a little bit grotesque. Like, all the sexual stuff, all the nudity, everything, it's all kind of handled in a way that's like a little bit, it's just kind of grotesque. It's like not really sexy. Like, there may be nudity, there's sort of like this stuff that, you know, you wouldn't want kids to see, but it's all kind of presented in a horrible way. And like I said, that was that same thing, Naked Lunch. It was like about guilt, about sexuality. So it was like every sexual thing. There was lots of sexual things present, but they were all horrible. You know, Devilman Crybaby does the same thing. It has all this, like, these sexual things going on, but they're all horrible. And so everyone's doing all this stuff, and it's all kind of grotesque and all kind of horrible. And so the devil turns to Crybaby, and he's like, "You know what'll summon a demon?" And Crybaby's like, "No, what?" And he like breaks open a beer bottle, and he's like fucking stabbing people. And so the devil runs around just like stabbing people in the club. And then like a couple of the guys get mad, and they're like, "Oh my god, what are you doing?" And so they like push the devil over, and they start kicking him, you know, like the devil not doing so good. So Crybaby gets up and he's like, "Hey, stop kicking the devil. He's just trying to summon demons." And then like the topless girl that met them at the entrance, she comes up. It's not important. Whatever. A topless girl comes up and she giggles and then pees herself and then erupts into a giant boob-covered demon that devours people. And it's all terrible. And oh my god, everything happens. Everyone starts turning into demons and everyone gets ripped apart. And one of the demons goes for the devil to rip him apart, or to make it look like they're trying to. And Devilman is possessed by a devil. He's racked with the desire to protect the devil, his friend, his close friend, the devil, and he's possessed by the demon, but his willpower overcomes the demon, and then he kills all the demons in the club. He doesn't like the club doesn't close down after this, mind you. People are still going to this club every night. Like, word doesn't even get out that it's dangerous. They're just like, "Ah, man, what a bloody massacre. Yeah, that's that club for you. That's club demon kill, demon murder." And anyway, so still a hot place to do drugs and have the gay sex. You know, what can we say? You know, there's no better place for at least a 30-mile radius. You got to drive at least like an hour to get anywhere else. So, So anyway, though, yeah. After that, like, he goes back to school, and Devilman Crybaby is like, he's super badass. And so he's like really strong, and he looks different, and he's like really aggressive, and he eats a whole lot. And when you eat a lot in Japan, that's really sexy. And so all the girls are like, "Wow, he eats so much. Oh my god." Like, he might, you know, he doesn't even get fat from eating so much. I don't know why that's a thing in Japan. It kind of amuses me, the idea that women just like fawn over a man who eats too much. Like, "Oh god, he can't control himself. I love him so much." So anyway, though, he just eats a whole ton. And then he goes out to race. And the animation for their running is just hilarious. Like, it's supposed to be kind of an unreal sort of demonic running, and I feel like the animation on that kind of nailed it. It just really this weird, like, unreal, like, they bend forward and they like flail their arms like they're swimming, and you know, like normal people when they run, you kind of like run with your back, like, you know, the wind's hitting you and you're going about as fast as your feet can carry you, but these guys are just like straightforward swimming through the air. It's crazy. So there's like another girl who can run at about the same speed as Crybaby, and for the longest time you think that she's a demon, but actually she's not. She's just a really fast runner. And maybe there's a metaphor in that, and maybe there's not. As the show went on, like I first started off and I was like, maybe there's lots of metaphors in all of this. But by the end of it, I was like, I don't care if there was a lot of metaphors. It's not worth trying to figure them out. It's it's clearly just an emotional, stylistic ride, and I'll just be content with that. So, yeah, they screw around for quite a lot. I mean, like, there's a lot of things that happen, but very little of it, like I say, is necessarily cogent. Like, it's not really like you have this string where you're gradually learning about the world or whatever. It's just sort of like things are happening and they all have these emotional impacts. And so, like, there's one scene where, I mean, like, they keep checking on this other girl, named, like, Miko. Like, I think their names are Miko. Like, there are two girls named Miko or something like that. But one gets called, like, I don't know, Miko 2, because she can't run as fast as the first girl. And so she's, like, really upset. And so there's this, like, sleazy filmographer guy who's, like, trying to get pictures of young teenage girls who are, like, really good at running. And apparently, like, this other girl did risque photos for him because he couldn't get the other girl who could actually run. And then, you know, she slept with them. And like, again, it's not really, like, important to the plot exactly, but it's kind of important to the emotional motives of the character in a way. And so, you know, like it's just kind of like these grotesque, like, sex scenes and these things like that. And so she's like, she masturbates, but then she's like super guilty about it because of this or that. And also she's apparently, I mean, maybe she's not actually gay. She just says that at some point she just says, I love this other Miko girl. And then the Miko girl's like, I love you too. But that's later. So, yeah, at one point the filmographer gets, like, Crybaby is going out and he's, like, killing demons in the streets and things like that. And then at one point this filmographer, he manages to catch film of Crybaby transforming and then killing a bunch of demons. And so then he goes to his boss, who, as it turns out, is also a demon. And he's like, I got this filmography. And his boss is just like, stop screwing around and film naked girls. I don't want to see demons killing each other. Like, I want to see naked girls. How are we going to sell demons killing each other to people who want to masturbate? And the guy's like, I thought this was going to be more important than that. And they're like, no. And so the guy leaves, and he's really mad, and he's like, I'm going to go to another magazine. And then the demon, who was his boss, gets in his car and then possesses him. So, you know, takes over his body. And so the filmographer guy calls Fast Miko, and he's like, come over to my apartment, Fast Miko. And then she does, and she gets naked, and there's like this whole pervert thing going on, and I can't remember even why they did this, why they invited her over. But again, it's all kind of like just emotional reasons for things, weird things. And so Crybaby comes to the rescue, and the devil is in tow, and the devil is just doing horrible things throughout. Like, I think they're trying to like track people down. They're trying to figure out like who got this footage in the first place. They don't even realize it was this camera guy. And as they're figuring it out, like, they go to the guy's house, and he still lives with his mom, apparently. So like the devil is like, where's your son's computer? And the mom's like upstairs, and so he goes up there and he installs like a program on it, and he's like, what are you doing? He's like, don't worry about it. And he comes downstairs and he tells the mom, he's like, don't log onto your son's computer. And she's like, I wouldn't invade his privacy like that. And he's like, good. So they leave, and then like Crybaby rescues Miko, and then he comes back, and like the filmographer is no longer possessed. Like, they have a big demon battle, and they kill the demon that was possessing the filmographer, and the filmographer is like, they're like, what other copies of this film do you have? And he's like, the one that you just deleted is the only one I had. And so the devil just shoots the guy. And then Crybaby is like, why did you do that? And then he's like, because he knew about you. And then he's like, that's not okay. And then he's like, and now I'm gonna kill Miko too. And then he's like, no, I'm gonna take her home. She's unconscious. She doesn't remember anything. So he gets in a little spat with the devil, and then like it turns out that the mom like went to go log onto the guy's computer. I mean, there was nothing on it because the devil already erased all the files, but the mom goes to log on the computer, and the computer explodes. It turns out that what he installed was a bomb. So this filmographer's mom dies, and so much for her. Then at some point, one of the guys in the rap gang like comes to Miko too, and he like raps out like he has a whole rap that he tells her about how he doesn't feel like people notice him. You know, he wants people to see him and remember him. You know, he's tired of blending in the crowd. And Miko too is like, I agree with you. And then rap guy's like, I hear there's a club where people get demonic powers. You want to go down there and do drugs and have sex? And she's like, oh god, yes. Like, I totally want to be the people. So they go down there and they get possessed by demons and they retain their willpower. And so Miko 2 comes back and now she's like a super fast runner. And she gets all smarmy and in the face of Miko 1. And she's like, I'm gonna challenge you. Like, whoever wins this race gets to be Miko 1. And Miko 1's like, okay. And they have this conversation while Miko 2 is topless. So that's the thing. It's like, I don't know. She just like takes off her shirt. Like, it's kind of great. Like, she just takes off her shirt and then she turns around. She's like, hey! Like, doesn't put her shirt back on first. And you know, I don't know. It's just weird and awkward because it's also at this point where they're talking about, like, it's after, like, the sexual overtones are terrible because repeatedly, whenever people have sex, somebody usually dies. It turns out that the rap gang kid was actually gay. And so he's like, they've got this scene where he's like in his room with some other dude, and they're like naked together, and then the guy's like, let's bang again. Rap dude's like, let's bang again, and the other guy's like, man, twisting my arm. And so then like, while rap dude's having sex with him, his like, he like splits in half, and then like tears the guy apart. And that was not an affectionate or sexy scene. I mean, depending on who you are, I guess, but like I say, everything's just kind of grotesque. So it wasn't like long after that scene that they were like, hey, look, boobs! And by this point, you know, like, it's just getting to where every time someone gets their tits out, something horrible happens. So it's really not a very sexy scene. It's just sort of like, oh god, please cover up your breasts. Please, not another murder. I can't take it anymore. No more death and destruction. Oh god. And you know, it's not this time the boobs don't cause all the death and destruction. You know, it's only in the changing room. No one's having sex, so it's because it's cool and it's acceptable, I guess, that it doesn't immediately turn to murder. But what does happen though is that rap dude in the middle of the big marathon that's being filmed like internationally apparently, he turns into a demon and then like tramples a lot of people in the stadium. It's pretty awful. And Crybaby was informed of the plan ahead of time. The devil orchestrated this. He created a form of water that would just cause people to turn into demons. I don't know why this is exactly. But, I mean, he's the devil. I guess he would know how to make such a thing. So anyway, though, Crybaby is like, hey, like, don't turn into a demon. That would be really bad. And then the devil, like, puts up a film of his boyfriend getting murdered. And, yeah, you know, then the guy goes nuts and he just tramples everybody, kills everybody. So afterward, Crybaby, he like rescues the guy and he's like, listen, like, I know you're just a human in the guise of a demon and you got really mad back there, but if you can just chill out and hang out with me, I'll find other people who are like us and we'll form a club, I guess, and we'll all live on the rooftops or whatever and it'll be perfectly safe. So they do that, and then what winds up happening is the devil starts releasing the stuff that he's been filming about demons to like the general public, and he's like, listen everyone, demons are a real thing. And this is actually a really frustrating scene because it's all in Japanese and they have subtitles, but the devil addresses everyone in English. Like when he addresses the whole world, he speaks English, and it's really frustrating because then they put the subtitles in Japanese. And this would be okay if the devil spoke English fluently and didn't have a terribly thick accent. So it's like you know, like someone's like able to speak another language, but their accent is like really bad. Like they have to focus really hard on saying the words correctly. It's kind of like this. So the devil gets up there, and like some of the words he pronounces really carefully, and so it kind of makes sense. And then other words he just doesn't pronounce correctly at all. Like the accent is way too thick, and it causes his speaking pattern to be kind of slow and kind of deliberate. Like there's not really a lot of expression, and you can't hardly understand him. But he's supposed to be making these like impassioned speeches. Like the things he's saying is supposed to be like profoundly important to people, and they're supposed to be like reacting really strongly to it. So I guess like it makes sense that the Japanese would, because they're just reading. But as a native English speaker, like, I can't help but feel like that was like one of the crappiest speeches I've ever heard. Like, could we have someone like who's more able to express themselves in English get up here and tell me that fire is raining down from the sky and hell is opening its maw wide to snatch us off from the mortal coil? Like, you know, I don't know. It was kind of funny because they were talking about like what a brilliant, you know, so and so whatever. And, you know, I sympathize for that voice actor. Like, clearly he did his best, but all the same, little tricky on that one. But whatever. So, yeah, during all this, like, Miko 1's little brother is, like, watching the news. And he's like, cool, demons are cool. So I don't know how, but he goes out and he gets possessed. Like, later on, we just see that he, like, looks like a demon-possessed person. You can usually tell that someone is demon-possessed because they wear a lot of eyeliner. Like, that's how you tell them apart. If somebody wears a lot of eyeliner, they're possessed by the devil. So, yes, the little boy just starts wearing a lot of eyeliner, and you know he's possessed by a demon. But the kid, as far as I can tell, doesn't actually retain his free will. He winds up unable to control himself, and so he starts, like, eating dogs, and then later his mom. He eats his own mom. And it's actually kind of a sad scene. But, yeah. Because the devil got up there and told everyone that there was such a thing as demons, all hell kind of breaks loose. Everyone gets paranoid. They're like, anyone could be a demon. So people start killing themselves in the street. And there's not like a cogent process to all of this. There's not like a logical, like, there's not some kind of government interrogation unit. Like, government vehicles are just driving up and down the streets, and if they see people, like, they just spray them down with machine guns. Like, there's no sense whatsoever. Like, everyone's armed with guns, and people are just shooting each other randomly. They're just like, you're a demon! I've got you figured out! And they just, like, gun people down. So, you know, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's not like people are living in paranoia. They just immediately explode into the most, like, volatile possible society that they can be in. Again, makes no sense whatsoever, but it sets the tone, and that's what's important. And, I mean, there's also a scene before all this where, like, Crybaby battles some demons, and it has more to do, like, I don't know, he asked this question, like, can demons love? Because one of the demons apparently loved the demon that Crybaby took over, you know, and the devil's like, don't worry about it. And Crybaby is like, okay, like, if you say not to worry about it. So, yeah, everything is just getting worse and worse and worse, and then, the demons get control of, like, the US Navy, and they fire a nuclear bomb at Russia, because they're like, man, this'll really mess everything up. So they fire a nuclear bomb at Russia, and then God just appears and creates, like, an orb of light that expands out over all of Russia and, like, wipes out the nuclear bomb and turns all the demons on the warships into salt. And then the devil's like, everything was going so smoothly until now. And he's actually the Antichrist, I guess, so he doesn't really remember that he's the devil, except he stops and he goes, wait a minute. Why do I feel like everything's going smoothly? Everything is unhinged and going insane. And so he goes back to, like, Peru. Oh, it's Peru, I think it was, not Argentina. It was like Peru or something like that. So he goes back to Peru to try and figure out, like, he's like, this is where the demon thing originated, I think. According to my own story, which now that I think about it, I don't really understand why I told this story. So he goes back to Peru, and it turns out that he was like, there's like this tribe of like, you know, natives, and he was just like this pasty white kid with blonde hair that was born to one of their women. And they were worshiping him as a god. And it turned out that they were doing that because he was actually the devil. Like, he had all these powers, and they recognized all these powers, but they didn't recognize that he was the devil. Because, you know, they didn't have that kind of... they don't have that faith. They're not Christians, so they didn't even know that they were looking for a devil. They just thought he was some benevolent god. And so they did, like, human sacrifices for him and things like that, because, you know, I mean, a small tribal society of 50 people can totally afford to just straight up murder guys every now and then. I don't know, maybe that guy did a crime or something. But anyway, though, yeah. It turns out that at some point the military found out about him, and I guess the military was aware of Satan's, and so they sent, like, a kill team to go shoot Satan to death. And so Satan killed the kill team, and then he flew away, and then just, like, abandoned his memories for some reason, and then set himself up in an orphanage. And that's where he met Crybaby, who actually has parents. I don't know why he was in an orphanage. But anyway, though, yeah. Or as like a daycare, maybe. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly. Whatever the case, it explains how the devil and Crybaby know each other for these reasons, and this is how they know each other. So, yeah, the devil and Crybaby go to meet at this old orphanage, this place where the orphanage was. And so Crybaby's like, "What are you doing? Like, look at how badly everything is going. Why did you do all this?" And then the devil's like, "It turns out I'm the devil." And then Crybaby's like, "Oh, well, that would explain some things, I guess." And then the devil's like, "Yeah, like, so anyway, this is gonna be great. Do you want to help me out with everything?" And he's like, "You've known me for how long? Like, what made you think that I was gonna enjoy destroying the entire world and killing all my family and everyone that I loved and hold dear?" And the devil's like, you know, I don't see why you're so attached. And Crybaby's like, I'm leaving. And before this, you know, they were gathering up these devil people, and they had like a fight that they got into because some of the demons were upset with Crybaby. And during the fight, it turns out that that rap guy betrayed him. Like, rap guy was like, "I'm gonna join with the demons because it looks like they're winning." I mean, like, the humans don't even, they're just like killing each other in the street for no reason. So, you know, the demons are at least like waiting to kill people who are specifically their enemies. Like, the demons know who their enemies are. The humans are just randomly shooting at people. So I'm gonna go with the ones who have some amount of discretion. This sounds like a good plan to me. And then there's like a big scene where like Miko 2 confesses her love to Miko 1. And then, like, because the devil wanted Crybaby to hang out with him, the devil releases the film footage of Crybaby turning into a demon, and he's like, "Go kill this guy, he's a demon, it's very bad how he is a demon." And so, like, all the neighbors show up with torches and pitchforks, and there's a big chase scene where Miko 1 rides on Miko 2, and Miko 2 is a demon, and then they shoot Miko 2, and then they kill Miko 1, and it's just murder and death, and everyone dies. And at the end of it all, there's like a big final climactic battle between humanity and the Devilmen and the devil. And the devil wins. Again, spoilers. So the devil wins, and he's the only survivor. Everyone else and everything else died. And so, like, the devil is just lying there, and he's like talking to Crybaby's like corpse. And he's like, you know, he's talking to him for a while, and then he kind of realizes that he's just talking to a corpse. And he realizes he may have made some mistakes. And he's just like, well, I'm all alone. And, you know, he cries. He cries over it. Like, for the first time, he cries. He's like, "I finally understand why this was a bad idea." And that's it. Devilman Crybaby. It's really weird. Like I say, very stylish, very emotional, not entirely cogent. There's a lot of scenes that are very frustrating because they're like pitch blackness. Like, it's like black animated on black, which is really dumb. Or rather, varying shades of gray animated on other gray. Like, it's not totally black, but it's so hard to see that they may as well just have a completely black screen with sound effects for all that it mattered. Like, there would just be things that would show up, and it would be like, I can't see what's going on. Like, you know, there's stylishness, and then there's just like blatantly making bad choices on purpose. I don't know, why did you do this? I mean, like, that's kind of how you get art, though, is you sort of have to break out. Like, if you know the rules, and then you intentionally break the rules. And the idea is, though, is that you break the rules in a way that creates a better product. And unfortunately, I think some of this black on black stuff really didn't make a better product. It just made it impossible to follow what was going on. Not that it was oftentimes easy to follow what was going on anyway, because so many times it was just like exploding boobs and like blood everywhere. And, you know, it was to simulate, like, I think only the demons could see in darkness. So I think the angle it was going for was that you, the human, can only see this like blurry black, you know, shadows, whatever. But personally, I would have rather just it be well lighted. You know, would have made the whole thing a lot more watchable. So Devilman Crybaby, it's one of those things. I don't know if I could recommend it for a lot of people, but if you're interested in animation and you just kind of want to see some interesting animation and a weird, like, kind of a bizarre thing, like a novel thing that you haven't seen before, Devilman Crybaby has definitely got some novelty to it. The animation is interesting. The rap guys are actually kind of cool in a way. I sort of like them. They appear multiple times throughout the show, and they just do these like little raps, and it's all kind of like beatbox, stuff like that. So I don't believe that they have music at any time. They just kind of beatbox and they rap, and the raps they kind of have a fun sound to them, which is nice because like I don't speak Japanese, so you just kind of hear these guys like beatboxing and creating a cadence with their voices, and then you can read what the lyrics are, but the lyrics don't actually work in English so much. They mostly just work in Japanese. But yeah, I don't know. I really like the Rap Gang. I thought the Rap Gang was kind of cool. And you're supposed to like them. I think they become positive characters. I glossed over a lot of stuff in my synopsis of Devilman Crybaby. Spoiled the most important details, glossed over some of the other things. But really, like I say, you don't watch it for the logical progression. You kind of watch it for the emotional ride. And the stuff they reveal, I mean, like I called it fairly early on that the devil was actually the devil. I mean, he's wearing all white all the time, but he's also like clearly a sociopath. So like they're getting into all this stuff with like, oh, demons are emerging, and I'm just like, that kid's totally the devil. Like there's no way he's not the devil. He's so obviously the devil. So yeah, Devilman Crybaby. That's my thoughts on that. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I'll catch you all next time.